Base layers, why is it an essential during these colder months? Well, let's talk about it. What is a base layer? Well, it's essentially our second skin. It's something that we wear closest to our body in order to help regulate our body temperature. Now, you might be wondering why not just wear multiple layers, but if you follow this idea, have you ever noticed that when you come off the bike and you're nice and toasty, you do start to sweat a little bit? Well, if you jump back onto your bike, you'll actually be drawing in colder air and you'll actually in turn get a lot colder. So this is where base layers come in. So with base layers, I'm going to suggest some features to definitely look out for as a rider. The first one is going to be this moisture wicking capabilities. What that is basically when moisture gets pulled away from our body, keeping us drier for longer. So it reduces that wind chill factor. Now, different manufacturers use different materials in order to achieve this. Starting off with Merlin's Atacama, they use merino wool in order to have that moisture wicking capability, and what that does is it actually absorbs up to 35% of its own weight in moisture. So although it's absorbing all that moisture, it's actually bone dry. There's other brands in the market as well, like Proskins, that actually use a different sort of process, and they actually use micro encapsulation. Micro encapsulation just basically means that either particles of solids, liquids or gases are actually surrounded by a coating. So that's what they use in the Proskins. Now this is the one piece, and like I said previously, you can get this in the top and bottom separately as well. Now with Halvarssons on the other hand, they have a mixture of both. So they use their 60% of merino wool to 40% Outlast. And those working together kind of gives you the best of both, if that makes sense. So those are the three for moisture wicking. Let's move on to the other features of base layers. Another great thing about base layers is we don't have to wear so much bulk. We don't have to layer and layer and layer ourselves to the point that we look like a Michelin man on a motorcycle. This reduces that. Instead, we just have to use a base layer, a mid layer, and our motorcycle jacket. That's far less than what you would normally have to do in order to keep cool. Now, I know that's for the winter, but these base layers are actually all season as well. So if it comes to the summer, this doesn't stop moisture wicking. It doesn't stop being a body temperature regulator. It still does the job even on those sunnier days. So if you want to keep your t-shirt bone dry or reduce the amount of visible sweat on those sunny days, then a base layer is definitely the right option. Moving on, base layers do actually aid our protection. Well, aids towards it. Now, I'm not saying that you can wear a base layer and think that you're going to be as protected as if you were wearing a one-piece Dainese suit, but we do see MotoGP riders with base layers underneath their suits. And the reason being is because one, they want to regulate their body temperature, but two, it actually reduces something that's not really talked about that often, skin shear. Skin shear is basically when a material attaches to our outer layer of our skin and shears it from the inner layers of our skin. So, in the sense of a leather jacket, when it's warm outside, that attaches to our skin, we come off our bikes and it rips the top layer of our skin from the inner layers. Not a nice thought. I hope I explained that well, but base layers come into play in order to stop that. It acts as a barrier between you and your leather jacket. So when you do come off your bike, in the event that you do, the leather actually attaches to the base layer and not to your skin, keeping you nice and safe. So that's another great thing about wearing a base layer. But hey, not everyone is a MotoGP rider or out on the track every weekend. Some of us are just daily commuters and want something to stop the irritation of our awkward motorcycle jackets rubbing against our skin. Again, that's what base layers can do for us as riders. It stops it from rubbing against your neck, or uncomfortable seams that you find in your jackets are much more minimal. You don't notice it as much. One point to definitely look out for when you're looking for a base layer is to see whether it mentions it's a flat lock seam. Now, a flat lock seam is basically when it's just a flat seam across your shoulder and across the other parts of the panels that make up your base layer. The reason why that's important is because if you have like normal seams that are actually bunched up at the end, that does fold and it does put pressure on our bodies. And over a long period of time, it does get a bit more painful. It may seem like I'm saying that base layers are the be all to end all for all our winter problems, but that's not the case. This is the first step in keeping us warm as riders. We have to incorporate our mid layers. Now, what is a mid layer? Well, it's the material or something that we wear in between the base layer and our motorcycle jacket. The reason why we do that is because we want to reduce the amount of air between the motorcycle jacket and the base layer and our skin. So filling up that gap means it's a reduction of heat loss, and it's also the reduction of air flowing through us. Now that's just a brief synopsis on what a mid layer is. You can wear whatever you want in between that gap. Now some jackets like your ruckers or your Rishas already have a thermal lining on the inside that can act as your mid layer. So make sure you keep that in mind if your jacket does have an inner lining. So that's the basic gist of base layers. So what can we do in order to optimize the amount of warmth we retain by wearing this? Well, we have to reduce the amount of skin that's visible. The less skin that's visible equals the less of a chance of us getting a wind chill. So in order to do this, we should incorporate other bits of clothing, whether that be inner gloves or balaclavas that extend further down onto your chest so you can tuck it into a jacket, or a storm collar that actually reflects or redirects the wind and is actually waterproof. There's loads of other bits that you can actually add onto it in order to keep yourself warm and dry. But it's down to you as to how far you want to take it. I hope that was somewhat informative. If there's any questions that you may have, feel free to leave them down in the comments. I'll try and get back to them as soon as I can. If you did enjoy this video, give us a like. Be sure to subscribe, ride safe, and see you all soon.